Darylyn's POV.
The chamber's window was open, letting the moonlight illuminate the space and highlight its beauty. In spite of everything Neith had put her through these past few days, Letitia looked incredibly beautiful as the moonlight shone down on her unconscious form, captivating my attention. I had rescued her 2 days prior, saving her from Neith's nefarious scheme. Still, she had yet to wake up. The healer said she needed time to fully recover because she had lost a lot of blood. It was fortunate that her wound had not become infected. He only had to wait patiently for her to awaken, which he hoped would not take too long. We were still in Hyattia since traveling from here back to Nisha won't be possible, especially with Letitia's state. I have stuck to her side almost every second, my focus based solely on her. Other matters could be putting aside for now, one being confronting Neith and punish her for her act of betrayal. I still couldn't believe she had been the culprit all along, and she would have probably gotten away with it had Oren's word not spark a word of doubt. My eyes combed through her appearance, smoothing her hair. "It's time for you to wake up, Edlardi. Open those beautiful eyes for me," I whispered softly. I'd taken the sweat that was glistening on her forehead before getting up, making my way to the door. I asked one of the maids to bring me warm water and towels, then returned back to Letitia's side. After the warm water was provided, my hands directly moved to clean her face carefully as if one excessive movement could destroy her body. I wiped her face with warm water and a towel, continued on her neck, then on her arms, repeatedly wiping around her hands, then on her legs. That's when my chest sank when seeing some of the wounds on her body that had once been stained with dried blood. My eyes were teary, choking, while my back shook as if paralyzed, like my hands were now unable to grip anything anymore. "I'm sorry I failed to protect you," I gazed painfully at her, who was still unconscious.
"You got hurt and had to endure a lot this past few days."
I traced the wound on her hand with a finger and looked up quickly when I heard her whimper as if in pain. "No!" Letitia shrieked in a low voice, still asleep while her brow furrowed as she wept. "Stop!" Like dragging her voice in the middle of a deep breath, tilting her head weakly. "No, please." Just as she was about to call out to, her voice was absorbed by a soft whimper. Instantly I was inflamed upon hearing that. My hands clenched into fists, drying the warm water that had seeped into the pores of the towel. "Don't do this. Please, I beg of you." Letitia kicked into the empty air over and over again, shaking her head uneasily and flailing as if she were drowning. Her seemingly strong and aggressive movements suddenly stopped when my hand rested on hers, and she gripped onto it tightly and drifted off to sleep again. Sorrow filled my eyes as I combed her face again with my knuckles that were rough from the battlefield.
"It's going to be okay. It's all over now."
I lips kissed her cheek, then went down to get her lips. "I promise to make sure you never have to go through such ordeal, never again." Choked, I failed to continue my speech. My hand squeezed Letitia's fingers. Letitia seemed promptly asleep. I sat up straight, looking for herbs to treat the wounds on her body. Perhaps because the effects of the tonic had fully worked, she wasn't delirious from the pain anymore.
"Change your dress,"
I ordered the maids after finishing treating her wounds again. "Do it carefully so that the wounds on her body don't reopen," I continued, leaning down to peck her lips before making my way out of the chamber. Letitia's dreams torment her sleep, entangling her in a realm from which she is unable to free herself. In the height of the terrifying shadows that had attacked her during the sleep, the effects of the tonic that had been administered to her had rendered her helpless and incapable of resisting or awakening herself. Her breathing was irregular repeatedly, her body was drenched in sweat, and her face was full of fright. She dreamed of the cottage and was still being trapped by Neith as she carried on her evil. She dreamt of how easy it had been for Neith to stab Kaelin without showing a hint of remorse, and she was scared it was her turn next. The look of terror soon filled my eyes.
"No, don't!"
She screamed silently, but it was too late as Kaelin's breath hitched and the knife jabbed his back. His mouth parted open as his breath was stifled. Neith was dragging her body by the chain around her hand, forcing her legs to work even though it was killing her exhausted limbs. She yanked me up to my feet, ignoring the fact that she was a sobbing mess.
"Your turn."
Letitia struggled, trying to protect her own body, treading empty air, gasping, pale, and trembling.
"Lady Letitia, please wake up."
Kiva shouted with a shriek as Letitia's eyes widened, shuddering like a deer in the light. Lady Letitia, it all over. You're having a bad dream, she continued, pulling Letitia up into a sitting position. Kiva, is that you? Letitia stuttered out, praying to the heavens that she wasn't hallucinating this. Kiva sobs out, letting out a nod. Yes, milady, it is I.
The heavens!
Letitia cries out, pulling her in for a hug, ignoring the pain that shoots up her skin at her abrupt movements. Her eyes were closed very tightly, as if her handmaid would disappear if she opens her eyes. She was scared that all this might end up being a dream. When they pulled apart, her hand cupped both of her cheeks, and the tears began to pool in her eyes.
I'm so glad that you are alive.
She stated this as she sobbed. His Majesty had been the one to save me. Kiva grabbed a glass of water that was available on a nearby table, handing it over to her queen.
Nothing will harm you, milady. You are safe now.
Letitia looked around in various corners after downing the water given to her, finding herself already in what seemed to be a spare room. Judging from the design, she would tell they were still in Hyattia. The dress she previously had on had been changed into something clean, even though her body still had wounds that hadn't healed, letting her know that it had only been a few days since the whole ordeal. Her slender hands ruffled her long, beautiful hair. What happened? She asked, wanting to know what had happened. Her body seemed to be holding her hands in a way, curled up in a sitting condition. Milady had been unconscious for 3 days. The king hasn't once left your side, only when he needs to attend to some matters of the court since King Oren's demise. Kiva says, I'm so glad you're finally awake, milady. I feel like I have failed to protect you. I never would have thought in a million years the Princess Nithotep would ever betray you or our kingdom. I still find everything hard to believe. Neith, what about her? What happened to Kalen as well? He had been stabbed. Letitia managed to voice, fighting back the ball of sorrow in her throat. The princess had been locked in the dungeon upon her arrest. I'm guessing the king plans on punishing her after returning to Nisha. He hasn't seen her since her arrest. Letitia nods, wetting her chapped lips. And Kalen. Kiva's eyes wandered around the room, pondering whether or not to tell the queen, before letting out a sad sigh. I'm afraid he didn't make it. He was already dead when they got to him. She answers, trying to fight back the tears. Letitia's heart felt like it was breaking into tiny pieces upon hearing the news of his demise. It might be true that he did work with Neith, kidnapping her and all. He didn't deserve an end like this, especially being betrayed by the one woman he gave his all and heart to. The door to the chamber burst open, and Kiva stood from her seat on the bed, bowing to the king, who was at the entrance of the door, taking in his wife's conscious form. He wasted no time, racing to the bed and pulling Letitia into a hug while trying not to crush her healing body as he let out a sigh of relief, glad that she was finally awake. Edel RD, he called out softly, pulling away slightly to gaze at her as he lovingly cupped her cheek, pecking the sides of her lips and then her forehead.
I'm so glad you are awake, my love.
Darium. That was all she said right now as a tear rolled down her moist cheek. He pulled her back into a hug, holding onto her like his life depended on it. Kiva, who was still present in the room, smiled at the two lovers, knowing how much they had gone through in a span of weeks. A smile graced her face, glad to see them together again. She bows at them, though they didn't see her. Their attention seemed to be focused on each other, which made the smile on her face stretched, and she made her way out of the room, deciding to give them privacy.
Tisha's POV.
Should you be on your feet? Nico asks when Darium and I made our way to the throne room. I'm fine, you don't have to worry about me. I smiled, still holding on to Darium's arm. It's been a month, and my injuries are all healed up. His gaze roved over the throne room as he nodded. I took the time to access him, taking in his rugged appearance, and I felt the pain grip my heart, knowing that he was hurting dearly. It had been a month since we returned from Hyattia back home, and the three of us haven't had the chance to gather together, mainly because Darium had all but commanded that I remain on bed rest, and the second being the fact that Nico was being distant. Not just with me or Darium, but with Zane as well. These past few days, he had hardly spoken to them at all and had immersed himself in work, even defying Darium's insistence that he take a rest. That is why our meeting here made me nervous. Nico had requested an audience with both Darium and me, which makes not just me but Darium, even though he doesn't show it, nervous. Darium helped me up to my seat on the throne before taking his beside me. "You said you had something of importance to say, what is it?" Darium asked, looking indifferent, but the way he had his hands clenched to his side gave him away. Nico gave a sorrowful look that I wanted so badly to hug him. He bowed his head, falling to his feet. "Nick. I'm sorry," he says, cutting my words off. "You have nothing to apologize for." Darium was quick to refute his words. "Neith is very much my sister, as she was your wife. You have no reason to apologize for her. I should have known, she was my wife, under my care. I should have paid more attention, maybe if I did, just maybe things wouldn't have turned out the way they did." His voice broke. "Nico, this isn't your fault. What happened with Neith's betrayal was no one's fault but hers. She had fooled everyone, and you don't have to apologize for her crimes. Not when she is undeserving of it." I spoke softly, hoping to reason with him. "So please stand up." Nico nods, hesitantly getting up from his knees. "What about her? What are you going to do to her? Irrespective of her royal status and her past relationship with us, she must be punished." Darium states. "She has taken not just one but numerous lives, and a punishment for taking an innocent life is death." Nico nods again, his face was passive, but I could tell he was fighting back the emotions. "But Letitia wishes for it not to be so and has begged not to have her killed." Nico's gaze widened in surprise, taken aback by Darium's words. "Why?" he questions. "Like you said, she is undeserving of your mercy and isn't at all repentant of her crime, so why pardon her?" "For Celeste," I said. "I wish not to have her disgrace and be killed in front of the people." "For Celeste," I tell him truthfully. "But that doesn't mean she won't be punished. We had managed to come up with a beneficial punishment for her." "What is it?" "En Shani," I said, a bit hesitant to let out the next words. I clenched tightly onto my dress as I spoke. ETH Gennaro Cove. The rest of the Neith cohort had been arrested, everyone who had worked with her and been a part of the plan had been executed for their act of betrayal to the throne. Nico didn't say anything for a while, and I could tell he was still processing my words, and after a few minutes he spoke again. "The reason for having requested an audience with you both is to let you know my intent to leave," Nico says, pulling my attention back to him. "What do you mean, leave?" Darium voiced out the very thought that clouded my mind. "I plan on leaving the palace with Celeste." He says this, confirming my fear. Why, my voice trailed off as my heart rate escalating, and my breathing was short and ragged as I made my best attempt to process. "I don't think I can bear staying here," he choked out. His gaze focused more on me than Darium, and my guess was that it was easier than facing Darium. Nico was no doubt scared of gauging his best friend's reaction to his words. I turned to look at Darium, who hadn't said anything, and I could tell he was still processing his words. "If you need a place to stay outside the palace, I can have preparations," Darium began saying, but was soon cut off by Nico, who shook his head. He smiled sadly. "I really appreciate it, but that won't be necessary because I will be leaving Nisha as well." "Why?" Darium asked. "Why are you choosing to leave?" Nico gives another sad smile. "Let's say I'm too much of a coward to face everything head-on and wish for nothing more than an escape. Being here would only remind me of everything that I have had and lost. I could deal with it like a man and move on, but," his voice croaks. "Even right now, despite knowing everything she has done, despite knowing whose daughter Celeste is, I still can't help but still love her, and I curse myself for feeling this way and for being this broken. This is why I need to leave, not just for me, but for Celeste." He says it, his voice full of conviction. "I don't care what people say, she is my daughter. And maybe one day we will heal from this, and when that day comes, I promise to return." I felt my tears resurface as I got up from my seat and threw myself at him. Holding onto him like he was my last hope, my eyes stung with the wave of tears as I buried my face in him. "You are truly going to be missed." My voice cracked. "I hope it doesn't take long for you to return." We will always be here waiting for you. We held each other for a long time, our bodies still, and our embrace was sad, strong, and full of pain. I continued to sob, and the sounds of my cries echoed through the throne room. It took me a while to realize that he was crying as well. I don't know when we pulled apart. All I know is that my tears left my eyes burning with so many emotions that I didn't even know how to feel. I felt broken and angry. Angry at what Neetha's betrayal had brought about. Nico smiled tightly, his eyes grazed past me as Darium walked to where we stood. You will be missed dearly, friend. This isn't goodbye, may we meet again. Do what you have to do and return to us. Darium said this apprehensively, extending his hand to him. Nico grasped his hand, his eyes watered with sadness as they shook hands, and unspoken words rested in the air. We won't be able to see each other, not for a long time. Nico said it lowly, his eyes flickering over to mine. I would like to bid my goodbye to Neith one last time, if that is okay with you. He asked, and I tried to fight back another sob as Darium gave a nod of approval.
Third person's POV.
Was it worth it? Nico curled up his fingers, clutching his robes. Was it worth it, committing such betrayal, losing everything, losing our family? His cold gaze met Neetha's unremorseful ones. Was it all fucking worth it? It all still felt like a dream to him, a bad dream he wishes nothing more than to wake up from. But no matter how hard he tried, he seemed to remain stuck in that reality, stuck in the betrayal of his wife. Stuck in the fact that she had fooled them all, she fooled him right from the start. She had hurt him dearly, especially with the truth about their daughter, his little princess. Wiping the tears that were on the verge of falling from his eyes, Nico quickly wiped them off and lifted his eyes. You make it sound like this is my fault, my love. I did everything for us, for the people, for the kingdom. Neith shouted, causing Nico to have his fists clenched so tightly that his veins on his wrist popped out. He was repulsed at the fact that she refused to accept fault and kept putting the blame on others but herself. Was that all that mattered to you? He asks, trying to control his rage. Did gaining power matter more to you than I do? Then our family did. He growled. Did you for once think about me, about how this could ruin us? Of course I did. Neith choked when she heard the pain in his voice. She had never wished for this to cause him harm, and maybe at the beginning she had only married to remain in Nisha and to cover her shame that she had conceived a child out of wedlock. A child bore by a mere guard. This would have tarnished her reputation and brought shame to not only her but also the royal family. That had been one of the reasons she had accepted Nico's request to court her. She had been aware of his feelings for her, and a month later they had both been married off, to her delight. This had been enough to cover her shame. But the more she got to spend with him, the more the feelings began to manifest, growing into something more than a mere attraction. Neith thought back to how she had tried to conceive again, this time with the hope of it being her husband's baby instead of her lover. But the more she tried so hard to bear his child, the more she was left with a series of disappointments. She regretted every bit of that and regretted having gotten with Kaelin. Nico, Diomev, my love, Neith tried moving forward, but the shackles in her feet stopped her from going closer to Nico. Do not call me that. You lost all right to address me in such a manner. He growls, his eyes blazing with anger. I get that you are pissed at me, but don't you think you are being too much? Everything was fine, we were perfect until she entered the palace, she gritted her teeth. I was important and needed, that was until she. She then continued, that wench. Nico did not let her speak further as he squeezed her neck by grabbing it tightly. Just stop for heaven's sake, Neith, stop. Letitia has nothing to do with this. This is all you. If anyone is to blame, it's you. Your never-ending greed and insatiable hunger for power. You were just not satisfied, you wanted what was hers. You were filled with jealousy and envy for Letitia, and it clouded your thought, and you being a coward, just won't admit it. His eyes turned blood red. The long nails of Neith had pierced through his skin on the fingers as she tried to get free of his hold. Commander Itos, one of the guards pulled him back while Neith coughed loudly as she held her neck. Let go of me. Nico moved ahead, but the guard did not set him free. Commander Itos, you cannot do this. Don't do this, the guard pacified him, who had calmed down a bit. Nico jerked off his arms from the guard's grip, trying to calm his breath as he gazed at Neith. I will be leaving the palace with Celeste as well as Nisha, Nico announced. You will never be seeing her or me again. Neith carried a bewildered expression on her face as she drew her brows together. The blood drops had stained her dress near the neck. What do you mean leave the palace? I'm too ashamed to face Darium. He says it sadly. You might be his sister, but that doesn't change the fact that you were my wife, bearing my surname. I feel like I have failed him, and I'm choosing the cowardly way by leaving the palace. Neith confusedly peered at him. Why does Celeste have to go with you? She is a princess of Nisha and deserves the right to live here, in the palace. She is my daughter, Neith. He states it out loud. I don't care how she was conceived, but she is mine. And I'm more than capable of taking care of her. Leaving the palace will be good for her as well. It will help her heal. Accept the fact that you will never be present in her life again. You can't do that. Neith screeches out. I'm a part of the royal family. I doubt I would last long here in the dungeon. It won't be long before I get. Your punishment has already been decided. Letitia had pleaded to show you mercy and not have you killed for your crimes. Neith smirked at this, not at all surprised that Letitia would plead for mercy in her stead. She was as stupid and gullible as she thought her to be. But rest assured, you will be punished. Really, and what exactly had she decided? Neith mocks out, letting out a laugh. Will she have me locked here till I am fully repentant of my crime? That is far too good for you. Nico stared at her blankly. You will be sent to Regwell, the prison cave. You're joking, right? Neith stutters out, a wave of fright coursing through her body. You will be staying there for the rest of your life, locked in the cave, in the middle of the mountain, all alone. Everything you need will be provided for yearly, so make wise use of them as there will be no one around to attend to your needs, not even a palace guard. The door to the cave will never be open, except once a year and the day of your death. What? No. Neith shouted, terrified. You've been banished, Neithotep. And no. A loud piercing sob echoed through the walls of the palace dungeon, one that was full of anger, fear, and anguish.